Hi guys, I'm Dr. Tara Tobias. I want to welcome you all back to my channel. In today's home exercise tutorial, we are continuing on in a series where I am going through a step-by-step progression on everything that I think is important that you need to focus on in order to go from completely bedbound all the way up until eventually we are going to go over stairs, including some really higher level balance activities, which are going to come a little bit further on in the series. So I hope you guys have found it helpful so far. As I've said in probably every video I've done in this series, you really want to make sure you don't skip over some of the foundational movements that are critical for normalizing your walking, or if you're just starting out, are critical to prevent some of the compensatory strategies and abnormal movement patterns that can occur when you're walking. So definitely I will put links for all the videos leading up to this one. If you're new and you're just now joining us, I will put links for all the videos leading up to this video in this series. Also, if you're new to my channel and you haven't yet subscribed, definitely go ahead and hit that subscribe button, turn on that notification bell so that you'll be notified every time I upload new videos. And now let's go ahead and dive in. So very quick review on what we've done so far leading up to this point. We're following a pretty similar format for each video. The key areas that are critical for walking that we've been going over in the previous videos are getting some more control around the hip, getting a little bit more control around the knee, and getting some more control around the ankle. So those are the key areas that we've focused on up until this point. I've also talked a little bit about the importance of dissociating the left side of the body from the right side of the body and the upper body from the lower body. So the upper body and the lower body need to be able to move independent of each other for walking. And then also the right side of the body and the left side of the body need to be able to do almost opposite things. So one major problem after a stroke is sometimes they'll link up and you won't be able to dissociate or separate the left and the right. So whatever one side of the body does, the other side of the body will do the exact same movement. And obviously, if you can visualize walking, that can be really problematic because your legs are pretty much doing opposite movements all the time. So the reason I bring that up at this point is we're going to start to focus a little bit more on that dissociating the upper body from the lower body and the left side of the body from the right side of the body in the mat activities. The things that you definitely don't want to skip over from the previous videos are bridging, getting that control around the hip, definitely the knee to prevent hyperextension or going into recurvatum or prevent the knee from buckling when we walk. So all these things, even if they aren't major movement impairments, you're at risk for having some of these movement problems that I point out. And even if it's there a little bit, what's going to happen when you go to walk is your brain is going to kind of tell your body that you're not secure, not comfortable. And so you're going to compensate in some ways to avoid those potential problems from happening. That's why it is so critical that you do definitely establish that knee control. A lot of you mentioned in the last video that it's near impossible to do that knee bending, that hamstring curl on your stomach. That is extremely hard, but keep at it because that definitely is a main stabilizer in the knee. It also helps with swing phase, or the part of the walking cycle where you actually swing your leg through. So just keep at it. Again, I think I linked it in the last video, but I'll link it again. I have a whole video on how to work on bending your knee, so I'll go ahead and link that one in the description below. And again, what I'm going through right now are just, I'm picking out some of the key exercises that I like at this moment. I've done whole videos on probably each component that I'm talking about right now as far as hip stability, knee stability, and the ankle. So definitely search through those videos. I have a playlist on the hip and the knee if you really want more in-depth exercises on any one specific area. But one more mat activity that you can add during this progression, including everything we've done up until this point, is tall kneeling. So that's going to be kind of our mat work that we're going to go through today. Again, just like I said in the last video, same progression. We're going to do a little bit of stuff on the mat, a little bit of stuff in sitting, a little bit of stuff in standing. So I follow that same progression regardless of what functional activity I'm working on with a patient. So we are going to follow that same format again today. The mat component today is going to focus on tall kneeling. I have done a whole video on tall kneeling. I will link it in the description below because I go over in that video, I go over how to get into tall kneeling, which I'm not going to do today. But tall kneeling is an excellent activity to include in some of that preparation or that body prep work in a lead up to walking. What it does is it takes your legs out of a synergy pattern. So by getting into tall kneeling, you have to extend the hip and bend the knee, which is really, really challenging. What it also does is it allows you to focus just on the hip control without necessarily being so high up, which can make things a little bit scarier and make it harder to focus on that hip control. So that's why I love tall kneeling. I definitely recommend that you do this holding on or having something in your hands for support initially. And then to work on that hip control or to relearn how to extend those hips, you're just going to sit back a little bit and then come back up to tall kneeling. So again, at first do this holding on to something, but then eventually you want to progress to no hands. So you're going to sit back and then you're going to just tuck that bottom in and extend that hip. So really, really, really focus on relearning how to extend that hip with the knees bent. And then if you wanted to make it a little bit more challenging, you could clasp your hands together. Now you really don't have the ability to hold on to anything and do that same sit back. Only this time when you come up, you go ahead and reach your arms up towards the ceiling and then back down. It just adds an additional challenge. And then one more challenge you can do in this position are those diagonal patterns, very similar to the ones that we did in sitting in the last video. Diagonal patterns, as I mentioned in the last video, are great because our muscles do sit more on a diagonal, and also these diagonal movements are closer to or more specific to the movements that your body goes through when you're walking. So I love these diagonal patterns. All right, and so now we're not really gonna do anything sitting per se, but we're gonna move right on to some sit to stand activities that I really like. In this progression, the way we're gonna progress that sit to stand is first we're gonna drop down to a lower surface. If you have stairs, stairs are great. If you don't, I will put a link below for a step that works great for this activity. If you've already purchased one of the stools that I mention a lot in a lot of my videos, you could use that, but you're gonna try and do a sit to stand from a lower surface. So we're getting a little bit more advanced now. If you aren't at this level, that is okay. I have 3 other videos leading up to this. Those are probably the videos that you want to focus on. But if you can get down to this lower surface, it really helps to eliminate some of those compensatory strategies because you really do have to use both legs when you're down this low. And the trick is getting your body weight forward. So try not to pull up on anything. If you can't do it from this low of a surface, just go to a higher surface. Maybe find a surface that's lower than a standard height chair, but not this low. But the key is learning how to shift that body weight forward, because right now all your body weight is more over your heels. And in order to be able to stand up from this low of a surface, you really have to be able to get that body weight more over your toes. And so learning how to do that is really, really valuable. And then staying right here on this staircase, we're going to continue on with that single leg biasing that we started in the last video. Doing anything where you're biasing the involved leg, the earlier you can start doing that, the better, because your brain is going to quickly learn how to use your strong leg to stand up and to walk. So the sooner you can start anything where you're forcing yourself to use your involved leg, the better. So for this one, you're going to stay on that staircase and you're going to pull your involved leg back. So just like in the last video, when your involved leg is back, you will use that leg more. So whatever leg is back, you're gonna use more. And that's of course what we're trying to do. So you're gonna go up a step on the stairs, you're gonna put your involved leg on the step down, and then you're gonna put your uninvolved leg on the ground. So with that uninvolved leg so far out and the inability to kind of pull it back and use it to assist, it's really forcing you to use your involved leg. That's why I love this activity. You could do this from a standard height chair and just putting a step on the ground, but these stairs, you really have to start from lower down, which is what I really like, and that's why it's a good progression from the exercise that I showed you in the previous video. The other thing I like about stairs is if for any reason you do get stuck and you can't get back up, you can get up a little bit easier by pulling up on the handrail that's there, or you can just boost your bottom up a couple of steps and stand up from a higher position. So stairs work great. All right, and then moving right along to standing. So I hope you found that exercise in the previous video with the furniture sliders really beneficial. We're going to continue to work on unloading the uninvolved leg and getting more weight onto the involved leg. So again, the furniture slider is great because your toe can still stay on the ground, so it's not as scary for your involved leg. But now what we are going to do is we're going to totally lift the uninvolved leg off the ground. So if you do this once and your foot rolls or your knee buckles or your knee goes back into hyperextension, go back to the furniture slider in the previous video. It's a great progression to lead up to this to normalize your stepping and prevent some of those compensatory strategies that can occur either due to weakness or spasticity. But now what you're gonna do is you're gonna put the yoga block in between your legs and you're just gonna do toe taps onto the yoga block. The focus of this one now is not just loading the leg, but also learning how to weight shift onto the involved leg, which is also really important. Getting your center of gravity, your body, centered over that involved leg. A lot of people do not do that after a stroke. They keep their body weight kind of off to the side, more towards the involved side. And I call it just like a controlled fall. So you're picking that foot up and your uninvolved leg and stepping it forward, but you're really not balanced over that involved leg. So you just kind of keep setting it down. And that's what I kind of call a controlled fall. So now what you're learning to do is lift the leg with the weight shift. The yoga block works great because it's not super duper stable. So be careful if it's tipping over or you feel like you got to get your foot off of it real fast, that means you missed the weight shift. So that means you did not weight shift far enough over your involved leg before you picked up that leg. Now, the next step in this progression is instead of stepping onto it from the side, you're actually going to start on top of the block and step off the front. So the first part of this stepping off the front is, can you stand with your foot on top of the yoga block and not feel like you need to step off, kind of like we did in the first one? But then also, can you step directly off the front and not off of on a diagonal or off to the side? If you're stepping off to the diagonal or off to the side, that probably means that you're not weight shifted enough onto your involved leg. So that would be the focus of this exercise, is being able to start on top of the block and step off the front, and then be able to step back onto the block. Now, again, this is your involved leg that's on the block. So can you maintain control in that involved leg while you're doing this activity, making sure that you're not going into hyperextension, that your knee is not buckling, and that you are not rolling your ankle? So stepping back onto the block is just as challenging as stepping off of the front. I highly recommend a mirror. It's really, really helpful just to make sure that, again, that involved leg is not going into hyperextension, is not buckling, and your ankle is not rolling. And then the next step is going to be to start behind the block and then step onto the block. Again, you're having to work on that weight shift, but at a little bit of a different angle. If you're contacting the yoga block kind of on the edge, that probably means that you're not weight shifted onto the block enough. You want to make sure that you're centered right on the block when you set that foot down on the block. And then you're going to step down off the back and then back up on top, and then again back off the back. And now we're going to put it all together. So you're going to start behind the block. Now you're going to step all the way over the block. There's two ways to do this. Obviously, if you do it long ways, it's going to be a little bit harder. You can turn the block sideways to make it a little bit easier. But the really important part of this activity is if you feel like you want to turn it sideways to make that distance shorter, it's probably because you're not comfortable having your involved foot behind you or out of your sight of vision. So that's what happens when your foot gets on front of the block. A lot of times, the majority of people that have hemiplegia or weakness on one side of the body is you end up compensating for this position where that foot is kind of behind you by just taking a shorter step. So you don't step your left foot forward far enough because you want to keep that involved foot just a little bit further out in front. There's other reasons why people do that, but that's one reason. So really make sure that you work on this until you can step all the way over the block without going around the side. Because if you go around the side, that does mean that you're not weight shifted enough onto the involved leg. And also making sure you complete the movement all the way over. And then stepping back is equally as important. A lot of times people catch the block or push the block backwards. Definitely make sure you lift that leg all the way up. The higher you lift the leg, the more demand is going to be on that involved leg. So a lot of times people try and cut that short and they just kick that block back. So that would be a sign that the involved leg is not ready for that challenge. So go back to one of those previous steps and really work on that until that involved leg feels comfortable with this movement. And then that is it. That is all we're gonna do in this progression. Again, these are gonna get harder and harder. Someone had commented in the previous video that the exercises in the last video were just too challenging. That is why we're going through an entire progression. So I will refer you back to the previous video. I will put links for those videos in the description below so that you have the entire series leading up to this video if this video is too challenging. As I mentioned last week, if you haven't signed up for my newsletter, definitely sign up for that. It's just a great way for me to stay connected with you and just keep you motivated. Neuro recovery just requires a ton of patience, and it's easy to lose your motivation or get discouraged. So I just try and keep you motivated, keep you on track with some encouragement. I also will send you emails with any new posts so that you'll get notified when I post any new content either on my website or on YouTube. Speaking of my new website, if you haven't checked that out yet, I have a ton of articles that are already published on that site talking about different products that I use, as well as summaries for a lot of these videos. I'm trying to get more up. I've been publishing videos a lot longer than I have been posting blogs on this new website. So it's taking me a little while, but I am trying to get summaries for all these videos so that if you watch the video once and you just want to go back and refresh your memory of the exercises, I already have several of those up there. So go to the website, browse around. I think you'll find a lot of valuable information there. Again, if you're new to my channel and you haven't yet subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, turn on that notification bell so that you'll get notified every time I upload new videos. I enjoyed spending time with you all today, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next video. You all have a great day.